We often hear the term bipartisan, Big Tent, and walking across the aisle to identify governmental cooperation between different parties or different factions within the same party. What will be your leadership approach to those who would oppose your legislative initiatives?
Thank you. Well, I can't make a call and ask if I have favors due, so we can't do that. What I would do is let people understand, call them in. And part of negotiating a negotiating team was, even though you have the idea in your mind, does not mean that you can just push it through. So there's lots of things you have to look at. What I would do, again, like I said prior, I'd call in the people and say, let's sit down. 4 years I've been in the State House, not once have I been called into the State House to speak with the governor, except on 2 bills I wrote, and one I'm still waiting for him to sign, and we're going to wait for this because it's going to be a smiley day for him. But I would sit there, and we have to sit and talk to people. You just cannot go out and say, I'm going to do this or not. With the gaming bill, it went through long, long hours. Lots of expert testimony came in, pro and con, and it was good legislation in there. So what I would do is sit down with people, both sides of the aisle. Like I said, I worked for the Republican whip, and I also worked for the ranking Democrat. And they did things for people. And that's what you need to do. And I would sit down with them and the union. I don't know, I might get endorsed. This is going to be fun. If I don't, that's going to be more fun. But we'll see. But you need to sit down and talk to people and have reasonable solutions and answers. And you have to do your homework. And you have to sit there and say, okay, we need X, Y, and Z. This is what I'm proposing. Can you make it better? Or what's wrong with it? And I'm not afraid to sit down and work with people. Absolutely not.
Thank you, Frank. Jack?
Working with people is one thing. Being shut out completely is one other thing altogether. I've spoken to so many state reps in our great state along the trail of this campaign, which started way back last September. And the level of frustration is immense. You know, folks, they were elected to represent us, and they have not been allowed to do that in a lot of cases. They've been completely shut out of the process. So I come at this a little differently. Hey, you gotta, this reaching across the aisle stuff, where has that gotten us in the last several years? Not only here in the state, but nationally. I look at it a little differently. Here's how I do it. I open the door, I look out, I say, hey, Democrats, hey, maybe some Republicans. Here's the agenda. If you guys want to participate in smaller government, reduce spending, tax cuts, Big Tent. Come on over. Happy. No problem. You don't? You want to continue with your agenda? Particularly if we do what I think we're going to do in November 2nd, stay there. It's time to define ourselves. It's time. We have to make a cabinet difference between our positions, our conservative values, and their progressive values. Moderation causes us to lose. So let's get back to solid ground. That's how I feel about it. I'm not trying to be ungracious, but I think that's the way it has to be when we move forward in this country. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. John?
Thank you. It's about one word, and that is principles. It's not about party. It's about principles. And that's what I've been talking about here, and it's what I did when I was commissioner and sat with my employees. I didn't wear an R. I didn't wear a D or an I. It is about working together to solve the problems, but I had principles. And I believed in core values, in limited government, less spending, and more freedom. And I said to my staff, I'm going to be here for 4 years, and I'm going to ask you, you can continue to do everything you can to help people out there and do the things that we need to with our service delivery. But the one thing you're going to always remember, and that is the taxpayer. And everything that we do, we're going to bring value back to the taxpayers of this state. And as a consequence, in 4 years, we returned $143 million and kept spending flat for 4 years. And when I was an assistant attorney general at a homicide case, it didn't matter what party you were. You're doing what you think is best to solve the problems with principle. You have to lead, you have to have conviction, and you have to be decisive. And you've got to be able to work together. And when my dad was in the legislature, and he's a Democrat, and he was in the state Senate, and Governor Sununu needed one vote to pass his budget, it was my dad he turned to. And it was my father, Bobby Stephen, that gave him the vote that Governor Sununu needed to pass his budget to control spending. That's what we're going to see in November. And that's what we're going to see through the next term and the next biennium. We're going to see folks working together. I've done it. I finished helping Governor Patrick Quinn, a Democrat in Illinois, find and identify over $2 billion in his Taxpayer Action Board savings for that state of Illinois. A Democrat governor. We can all work together. But again, we've got to make sure it's about principles. It's not about party. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Karen?
Well, when elected to the position of governor of this state, I will be representing everybody. It doesn't matter whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, a Libertarian, or an independent. I will be representing everyone. That means that I have to talk to everyone. I have, over the past 17 years, worked tirelessly to be a coalition builder, to bring together people from all areas to the table so that we could talk about what is common amongst us. That is what it's all about. And John is absolutely right. It is about not compromising on your principles, but it's about leadership. Leadership will be able to present the vision and then work with you to find out how do we come about making this happen for the great state of New Hampshire.
Thank you, Karen.